Hey, everybody. Torrance and I, we're both excited to be joining all of you virtually to share our story. So this is our family. First person I want to introduce you to is our mom, Mimi. She's a single mom who single-handedly raised the two of us to who we are today. So we're extremely thankful for her. And I'm Terrence. I am Torrance's older brother and currently his primary caregiver and advocate. And last but not least, we have Torrance. So even though, so our mom had been Torrance's primary care for many years, and now I am Torrance's primary care. But even before then, Duchenne has run in our family for at least two generations, if not more. And our grandmother is also a primary carer to two of her sons, our mom's brothers, and their name is so our mom's oldest brother, Charles, and her youngest brother, John, also lived with Duchenne muscular dystrophy in Hong Kong. So here's a video from 1967 where you'll see our two uncles, Uncle Charles and Uncle John. Yeah, just in a day-to-day kind of setting. So unlike Torrance, who grew up in Toronto, even though Torrance was born in Hong Kong, they didn't have the same access to, for example, like education, and equipment, for example, even like using like powered mobility or have like social activities. So our lives are significantly different from that of which our uncles lived in Hong Kong. But they were fortunate enough to been part of the family where we had resources in Hong Kong to at least give them access to certain like medical treatments. And as you can see, lots of space for our uncles and our family to kind of move around in a kind of nice environment. So even though in terms of certain things that Torrance we'll talk about in terms of his experience growing up here, certainly different in terms of what our uncles had to go through. Which segues into Torrance sharing about his experience.
Yes, hi everyone. So some early signs that I had was of course falling and trouble with stairs, and I also couldn't jump. But my earliest memory of falling is when my mom told me to be careful when I was walking to school. Yes, but I ended up falling down and scraping my knee. But good thing my teacher could punch me up, so that was okay.
And as you were going through that transition, like what were some of the emotions that you were feeling?
No, I didn't feel any emotions. I was happy. I couldn't go with the flow.
Mm. And did you know you had like muscular dystrophy? Did anyone like tell you about it?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
No.
Yeah, so I also use short and some long phrases that you can see in the picture to help me stand up I guess it's to straighten my legs a little bit. To stretch it out, I guess. Yeah.
And do you know how long you were using your braces for? Those braces for?
Couple of years, really. Couple of years, and then I stopped, I guess.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so I got my first manual wheelchair when I was 10 years old. And so walking was getting hard. So yes, in the picture there, yes. And then later on, I got tired pushing the manual wheelchair. My arms got fatigued easily. So I ended up applying for my first power wheelchair, which was so much fun. I could zip around the hallways.
And you know how old were you when you got your first power chair?
Yeah, no, 14 years.
Oh, 14.
14 going to high school, yes.
Okay.
Just as you can see in the other picture, yes. And this is now my third power wheelchair.
Yeah. And this particular power chair has more features too.
Yeah, oh yeah, the first one I couldn't tilt, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much better.
Yeah, so now Torrance's current chair, he has tilt and recline, so for pressure relief and all of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so the treatment that I got was I'm going to cell therapy where I was injected with some good cells, which took some fundraising from friends and family, which we were very thankful for. And also some alternative treatments I did is support massage and acupuncture, which didn't really help. But I also tried like energy healing and Reiki, which helped me relax at least. Yeah.
And in regards to cell therapy, this was a clinical trial and one of the few that were available back in the day, and this was back in the 90s, right?
Yes.
So unlike what Defeat Duchenne is making available with like the resources of all the different clinical trials available around the world, back in the 90s, we only had limited access to certain clinical trials, and all of them were out of pocket paid. So that's why, as Torrance mentioned, it was we were very lucky that our mom and her friends did fundraising across Canada to raise enough funds to send Torrance and our mom down to Memphis, Tennessee, because that's where the clinical trial took place, and over the span of about 2 years or so. Yeah, about 2 years where Torrance would have to go down regularly for checkups and all that. So the funds that were raised privately certainly helped in terms of at least giving Torrance a chance with the clinical trial.
Yes, I also got the spinal fusion surgery because I had syncus, where a better rod was placed in my back because of the scoliosis. I guess it helped straighten my back. Yes, as you can see, I was in rehab for Florida later on. Yes, for like a few months.
My memory of that of you doing the surgery is after post surgery when you were sick kids. I think one of the Harry Potter books just came out, and I remember like reading Harry Potter to you. I don't remember that.
During that time, okay.
Yeah, it was like during that time.
Yes. Also, about the fusion, about the surgery. One night I felt some coolness in my back and some pain, but I didn't realize that I could ask for morphine. I guess I have some good pain tolerance.
So there's a lesson learned here is that it's okay to ask for pain medication,
Yeah.
especially doing the spinal fusion.
Yes. Yes, I did a lot of social activities when I was growing up, such as Easter Seals Camp and also Scouts Canada, where I went to winter camp too, and also participated in civil sailing, and I like going to movies and concerts, and I also participated in an independent program where I learned to be more independent. And also, I'm very proud to have graduated from Seneca College. As you can see in the photos, I like art and fan lots of fan stuff like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and anime. Yes. Yes, but my biggest passion was playing power wheelchair hockey or power hockey for 12 years, where I traveled and represented Toronto twice, and I won various awards. I would really recommend kids with disabilities to participate in power wheelchair hockey or any other sport, because it's a great way to meet new friends.
I think Torrance, you're super humble here because you've actually won like MVP goaltender and won multiple championships. So I think in the 12 years that you played, you accomplished a lot for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There are leagues around Canada, so look up for them if you have it in your local area. Like in Ontario, BC, I believe there is, and Alberta and Manitoba. Those are the ones I know of. Also, technology is very important to me. My smart home, which helps me be more independent. Using Google to control the light, temperature, TV, and also the door. Um, I also use something it's called Template Shield, which helps me use a button with my left hand to so I can control my iPad. Just a click of a button. It's really important to me right now because I make TikTok videos and I also love drawing on my iPad as well. As you can see, one of my drawings is right there. Superheroes.
Hey, and since we're sitting here in our home, do you want to show people how you use the smart home technology?
Okay, Google. Change dining room light to 100%. Okay, Google. Turn off the dining room light. Okay, Google. Turn on the dining room light.
And how does that make you feel being able to do
Good.
that?
Good. I guess empowered. I guess empowered, maybe.
And I think this is so great that we have access to so much cool, even just off-the-shelf technology like smart home, like Google and Alexa. So things to consider as you're thinking about what technology could empower those that we're taking care of. Okay, so it's my turn to share a little bit. So I'm Torrance's older brother, like I mentioned, and as a brother, we have a lot of things that we've done together growing up. And I'd say one of our loves together is video games. So we spent a lot of time on the Nintendo platform playing a lot of games together. And we also enjoy a lot of like events and activities. So for example, going to movies, going to concerts, going to sporting events. And 10 years ago, our family, for the first and only time, did a road trip together across the US and took a cruise together. And that was epic because that also gave Torrance and I a chance to explore and check out different baseball stadiums together because we both love to watch baseball. And then, yeah, just really spend time together as family and doing things that we've always dreamed about doing together. So that's something that as brothers we do. The other thing that as brothers that we also did together was after Torrance graduated from a college, since he didn't want to kind of further pursue what he studied in legal administration, we decided to create a not-for-profit to initially help Torrance, but then later on our friends with creating meaningful work opportunities. And I would say one of the biggest highlights for us is because we started a media initiative as part of our not-for-profit, where a lot of our friends, including Torrance, contributed and wrote a lot of articles from parasports to relationships to technology. And the biggest highlight of us running this media initiative for about 8 years is in 2015, the Toronto Pan Am Games was in the city, and we were the only official media contingent representing Canada that was fully powered by people with disabilities. And as you can see here, Torrance on the far left or on the far right there is interviewing a competitor for this current Paralympics, Orally, who I think won how many gold medals this time?
One or two.
Yeah, a couple of medals this time, and you got a chance to chat with the late Honorable David Onley as well. So yeah, so we got to do a lot of these things together as brothers, which I'm extremely grateful for. So when Torrance was diagnosed with Duchenne, I was around age of 10, So already as his older brother, at that young age, as a sibling caregiver, I already started supporting him and our single mom. But I didn't really identify as a caregiver until my like late 30s, actually, until I heard about the term. And really, as a sibling caregiver, my primary role, even though it's evolved over the years, my primary role at this moment is to advocate for services and support for Torrance to ensure that he gets the care that he needs. However, during 2016 to 2018, Torrance had some health challenges where he experienced anxiety, suicidal ideations, even started the process for medical assistance in dying, and spent time in the ICU, as you can see in the photo. During that time, it was extremely challenging as a caregiver, not only as a sibling caregiver, because our mom was all hands on deck, her partner was also there to support. And it was during that time that, and when I say extreme caregiving, this is where on a daily basis, it's kind of working in like chaos mode, where almost like every day is like life or death. And in those moments, at least from my experience, it's extremely challenging, super stressful. But thankfully, Torrance was able to overcome it. As you can see, he is with us today. So because I've experienced care for Torrance and kind of navigating the healthcare system for Torrance, I also over the years taken on other roles to care for other family members and friends. So for example, our grandfather, who was aging at that time and had to transition into long-term care. I also was the power of attorney of personal care for Torrance's former personal support worker, who, because of health challenges, had anxiety and was later diagnosed with dementia, and eventually transitioned into long-term care. And then finally, our mom, who was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and due to diagnosis, also encountered suicidal depression. So because of my skill set of learning how to be a carer for Torrance, it also gave me the skill set and confidence to also support other people that I love and care about. And because of these lived experiences, and maybe sometimes because that these experiences come to me, I've gained a lot of tools in my toolkit. So when Torrance was actually going through his health challenges back in 2016, I felt like I need to level up because I didn't feel I was in control of what was going on. So I started training different things like mental health first aid, suicide prevention training, hospice training, and even got end-of-life care doula training as well, which proved to be super valuable, especially when our mom got her stage 4 cancer diagnosis, to walk our family through that end-of-life care support. And even though my academic training is in business technology, and I've worked in different industries such as aerospace, higher education, and government, there's always been a calling, and this is actually not surprising, having spoken with a lot of other siblings who are caregivers themselves, that we end up working in the space of care or technology related industries that then help individuals like our siblings. So in the last 10 years, I've worked with a variety of assistive technology and complex rehab companies. And the current company that I'm working with is Braze Mobility. We're a Toronto-based company that's designed and developed and sell the world's first patented blind spot sensor for wheelchairs. And these sensors would pick up obstacles and then alerts of users when there's obstacles around. And you could mount these sensors on any power or manual wheelchair. So I'm sure for any caregivers in the room, one question that a lot of people would ask us is, well, how do you take care of yourself? And sometimes I kind of chuckle because, especially during the moments of extreme caregiving, at least for myself, eating, sleeping, and maybe taking a shower is my form of self-care during those extreme caregiving times. But when, for example, when Torrance's health is much more stable, I was able to then seek out other forms of support. So for example, men's support groups, leadership programs, and mastermind programs that give me a place on a regular basis to turn to talk and have a safe space to do so. When our mom was diagnosed with cancer, I was offered by the OHT professional counselors and psychotherapists to work with, which I still turn to and work with to this day. And then other healing modalities. So for example, acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, a exercise called TRE, meditation, breath work, and even plant medicine ceremonies, just because growing up as a sibling carer and especially not knowing how to express and understand what was going on, there's been a lot of trauma that I've experienced, and then using these different healing modalities has been extremely valuable for myself to heal from some of these things. Other resources that I've turned to over the years too, that's been extremely helpful is, at least in the last like 10 years or so, finding other siblings out there. So an organization called Siblings Canada exists, where I was able to meet other siblings across Canada who also take care of the sibling with disability. So that's certainly a very valuable resource. And then organizations like the Canadian Centre for Caregiving Excellence, the Ontario Caregivers Organization, both provide services and programs to support caregivers. And then there's hotlines that is offered through the 211, the Toronto Seniors Helpline, and then also the Ontario's Caregiver Organization also offer hotline. And for me, the value that they bring is when I call them and I talk to them in terms of like what's happening, they're a great way to bounce ideas off of and as a sounding board to make sure that I've already accessed all the right resources for the person I'm caring for, and then whether or not there's also support programs for caregivers like myself. So yeah, lots of different ways to seek out support as a caregiver. So like I mentioned earlier, our mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and died a few years ago. So now we're going to talk a bit about kind of what life has been like without our mom.
Yes, so I took more responsibility for my own care, coordinating with PSWs through agencies, and also ordering meals and or maybe order frozen meals. Yes, and I also got my first credit card, and I could pay for my own bills.
Yeah, and this may not seem like a lot, but I remember when our mom was diagnosed with cancer, this is back in 2019. And prior to that, our mom took care of everything for Torrance. Like, you didn't really have to worry about anything because our mom managed everything for him. But when she was diagnosed, I turned to Torrance and I'm like, hey, like, I don't think I could manage ensuring that you're taken care of, our mom's taken care of. And at that time, I was also managing Torrance's former PSW's care too. I wasn't able to do it, so I turned to Torrance and I said, hey, can you take on some of these things for yourself? And you know, 5 years later now, I would have to say like how proud I am of Torrance for being able to like take on all these things. And I know you put a lot of pressure on yourself too, in that process, but you've done an amazing job. I don't know if you felt that for yourself too. Yeah, so yeah, just incredible. And I think just the fact that it just demonstrates that you're very capable in ensuring that you're taken care of too. So in terms of my take is that there was no planning that our mom did with us. I guess as morbid as it sounds, I think our mom didn't think that Torrance would outlive her. And so there was no planning whatsoever. But thankfully, because Torrance had his health challenges back in 2016, and then when our mom got her cancer diagnosis in 2019, I kept advocating for more services and hours for Torrance since then. So it's been like years in the making, like 8 years in the making. And so by the time our mom died in 2021, Torrance had the bulk of like the hours that he needed all in place. So thankfully, because of that, like Torrance continued to receive the same, actually now even more hours to ensure that he's taken care of. And I think growing up, I never really considered that this would be like a responsibility that I would take on, but because Torrance is now my only immediate family member, my only brother, because I only have one brother, in my heart, it just feels like it's the right thing to do to ensure that Torrance gets to live out his wishes, and his wishes is to be able to stay in our family's home. So as his older brother and now as his primary care and advocate, I'm here to ensure that he gets to like live out these wishes. And something that I had to do after our mom's death is do a lot of the legal preparations. So for myself, I had to update my will, and then working with different lawyers to ensure that if anything was to happen to me, that Torrance is taken care of. So what I ended up doing is that at least in my own will, to include at least a clause in there that if anything was to happen, that a trust would then be set up. And I selected to work with a wealth management division of a bank, who would then become the executors of his trust. And they would then work with Torrance to ensure that he gets the finances that he needs, and then also it doesn't impact Torrance's ODSP payments. And then the last thing that we've been continuously working on and trial and error with is setting up a network of support for Torrance. And what that looks like and means is that in different areas of Torrance's life, he doesn't need to rely on me as his primary care, where he could turn to other people that have stepped in to say, hey, we also want to be part of Torrance's life. And it could be supporting him in like the areas of social activities or finances or technology, to ensure that Torrance gets this like wraparound support from other people. And these could be people that are family, friends, community, that Torrance trusts. So final thoughts.
Yes, I would recommend kids with Duchenne to follow the passion. Like when we play power wheelchair hockey or even drawing, yes. So I would suggest, yes, to follow your passion.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different passions that you're following now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Especially in drawing and TikTok and stuff. Yeah. So for me, my final thought would be for all the caregivers out there. So starting with sibling caregivers, there are resources out there for us, and you reach out to people like myself because we're here to support each other. I know growing up, I had a hard time because I never connected with any other sibling. So I always thought that, oh, this experience is only unique to me. But when I started connecting with other siblings and other people that understood me, wow, what a difference it made. And then for all the other caregivers, especially all the parents in the room, is there are also resources there for all of us. And I know it's very difficult because our focus is on making sure that the person we're caring for, in this case, your child, and in my case, this is my brother, that we tend to actually forget about ourselves. So to ensure that you also get the support that you need, and there are, like I mentioned, through the Canadian Caregiver Center of Caregiver Excellence, and then the Ontario Caregiver Organization in Ontario, which there are also similar organizations in different provinces as well, to reach out to them to see what kind of support's available for you. Because we need to take care of ourselves so that we could show up our best selves to ensure that the person we're caring for is taken care of. So that'd be my final thoughts as we wrap this up. So yeah, so thank you for your time. Hopefully you have an amazing rest of the conference, and looking forward to any of the questions that you may have. And in the meantime, feel free to also reach out to both Torrance and I. So those are QR codes to our websites, and feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to chat and connect with all of you. So have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right, and now we're going to have Terrence and Eric come on up. Please, this is a great opportunity to ask anything that you could possibly want from these two amazing people. we have any thoughts, questions? You guys want to say anything? Eric, do you have anything you want to say?
I guess since Terrence and Torrance went a great length about their lives and all that kind of stuff, I guess I can give a slightly brief overview of my life. I mean, I'm 24, so I'll try to keep it short. As people who have been with Jesse's Journey to Defeat Duchenne Canada for some time, a lot of you might already know my story, but since there are a lot of new faces here at Defeat Duchenne, I suppose I can go over it again because I would see Rick and John probably 2 or 3 times a year. And so they were always very well kept up with what I was up to. But anyway, so I was diagnosed with Duchenne when I was 2 years old. And so I've pretty much lived with Duchenne most of my life. So I never really knew a life where I didn't have it because I don't even remember learning about when I had it. I just kind of, oh, this is what I have. And that's what it is. So growing up, it was pretty normal. I had my mom and dad and my younger brother, Devin, who's a year younger than me. So the two of us were very close growing up. We did lots of stuff together, family trips and road trips, lots of those. And it was probably by the time I got into grade 1 or 2 when I really noticed that my strength was starting to go away. It was obviously very, very progressive because I was still able to run around and play soccer and stuff in grade 4 and 5. But it was around the end of grade 5, start of grade 6, where I had to start using an electric scooter to go far distances. I was still able to walk around the house and walk around inside the school, but so the scooter was mostly to get to and from faraway places that I couldn't bike to or walk to. And then starting high school, I was still using the scooter. I was obviously not, I used the scooter to get around inside the high school from class to class because it's a big jump going from elementary school where I could walk from one class to another, and then the big high school that I would have to go from room to room. And in high school, I took advantage of all the different clubs and stuff. I joined the band and the robotics club, and I was a part of those pretty much my entire high school career. And I was actually the captain of my robotics team in grade 11, which was really cool. And throughout high school is when we got rid of the electric scooter and I transferred to a power assist wheelchair. Don't know if you've heard of what those are, but like it's kind of like a manual wheelchair, but there's batteries in the wheels. And when you push it, there's a sensor that kind of makes it go a little bit more. And then by around 17, like grade 11, grade 12 is when I started using a power chair. But I was still able with the power assist wheels and my power wheelchair to just take it from class to class, and then I could stand up and walk around inside the classroom. And the like the metal shop and the wood shop where I spent a lot of my time, as robotics was pretty much my life at that time. And then really in grade 10 is when we started talking about adulthood in 18 and how all that would change in the medical stuff. Of course, I discussed that earlier, but also going to university was the next big thing and trying to figure out how to manage that, because obviously high school, I could take the chair from classroom to classroom, but then in university, you got to take it to a bunch of different buildings. And so that was really weighing on my mind. I originally was planning to go to McMaster, but then when it was the university fair at my school, Carleton was on the list. And we thought, oh, Ottawa's pretty cool. It might be good to check it out. And that's when I learned about the attendant care program at Carleton. And that pretty much made my decision for me. And of course, Carleton is an amazing school when it comes to science and biology, because that's what I am getting my degree in. And yep, once I didn't really do any independent living training before I went to Carleton. I kind of just showed up. I mean, I was always pretty good in doctor's appointments and at home asking for help if I needed it and being able to explain how to do stuff. So pretty much just showed up at university with no real training on how to direct care to a total stranger. But I figured it out, and it's been an awesome 6 years. Of course, minus 2 years of living at home because of COVID. But yeah, being at Carleton, I've gotten involved in a whole bunch of societies and clubs and going out and meeting new people. And yep, now I'm going to be graduating in the spring of next year. And the plan is to move home, and I will see how things go from there. Excuse my cough.
So yes, so now in the audience, this is a really great opportunity to speak with Terrence and Eric. They've lived quite the lives, and I know that they're very happy to share with us. So if there's any questions, any comments, anything.
I have two questions if there's time, one for Terrence and then one for Eric. For Terrence, how can the healthcare system really provide more support for caregivers? What would have been beneficial on your journey?
So actually, there's actually a lot of work being done right now that I'm involved in. One of them being through the Canadian Centre for Caregiving Excellence, where the work of creating a national caregiving strategy is being done. Actually, in the recent federal budget, it was actually passed that the government will be supporting a national caregiving strategy. And I will share that information because I'm sure there's a lot of caregivers in there that would love to give your input and from your experience and how we can better support caregivers. I think for me growing up, it was challenging because no one talked about it. As like the sibling, we kind of become the invisible one. And I do remember our mom at least like having some insights of like being at Bloorview to like send me to a counselor. But even at that age, I didn't really know how to talk about what I was experiencing. So I think perhaps just more exposure to like other siblings is useful. And I think I know at Bloorview now, they do have more like younger sibling support groups and things like that. So having programs like that would be valuable. And then for parents who have time to be like able to like talk about it with siblings, because I know our parents, or at least my mom, didn't even have the vocabulary to like talk to me about like, oh, what's happening. So I think those things would be extremely valuable for siblings, especially young siblings, trying to like just grasp what's happening to my sibling. And actually, at one point in time, because I think it was like a year or two before my brother got his diagnosis, we actually got into a bike accident. So for like 5 years, I thought it was like my fault that Torrance got like muscular dystrophy because no one talked to me about it, right? So I think a lot of it is around communication with like your children, just about, oh, like this is what's happening. And then being able to like meet other siblings that are also like experiencing something similar is valuable. And then I think now as an adult, I think it's just a lot of like ensuring that there's support for the person that we're caring for. And that still takes a lot of work and advocacy still. Like right now, my brother, he gets, which is kind of unheard of, like 75 hours per week. But it's taken me like 8 years of my advocacy to ensure that my brother gets the care that he needs and to fulfill his wish of being able to live at home. Because he's 37 now. And there's been talks about, oh, what about long-term care? But long-term care is certainly not a place for someone young like my brother and with his complex needs. So it also took a lot of advocacy to say, hey, he doesn't belong in a long-term care. And if his wish is to be at home, how do we ensure that we get all the wraparound services holistically from home and community care to allow him to stay at home? So I think there's also a lot of opportunity to train family caregivers because we're not trained to navigate the complex healthcare system that we have. And I know that Ontario Caregiver Organization, the Center for Caregiving Excellence, and Caregiver Alberta, they're all working on things like this. It's like, oh, when we become caregivers, we could actually turn to these organizations to actually help us navigate this complex system that I know growing up, I just had to learn. And then kind of watching our mom kind of try to navigate it, I learned from her. And so I think there's still a lot of opportunities to better support caregivers as we're new to this experience, and to know that there are resources out there for us. So thanks for the question.
Thank you. Yeah. It kind of leads into my question for Eric. Sorry, Eric, I don't know if you can see me. A lot of our families kind of struggle with how to tell people about the diagnosis. And so I know that was a long time ago for you, but I wonder if you could, share your experience with being told the diagnosis. Would you prefer it to be more open, kind of like Terrence alluded to, being really honest with the communication?
Yeah, so obviously I was 2 years old when I was diagnosed, so I do not remember that. But I think I remember there's a lot of I can talk about telling people that I do have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, because that's a constant question, especially by younger kids. I mean, there's kids across the street that live across the street from us that always ask me why I'm in a wheelchair and all that. And so a lot of it is just trying to be light about it. Just say, oh, it's just my muscles aren't as strong, so I have to use a wheelchair to get around. And from what I remember in elementary school is we did something called Eric's Dance Off or something like that, where like all the different classes were a province in Canada, and there was like everybody had to dance across Canada. So like the more dancing everybody did, the further across Canada we went. And so yeah, there was this like big thing in the gym where we all like danced to music and stuff. And it was all based around that, like, this is raising money for Jesse's Journey, which is what it was called at the time, which is to raise money for DMD research. And that is because I have DMD and living with it. And so that was a great way that other people learned about it. And having grown up, for those of you who have been part of Defeat Duchenne Canada a while, Eric's Amazing Race was something that ran from 2003 to 2014, which is what my aunt and uncle founded. And we did that. It was a car rally and silent auction. And so that was a big part of my life. And so I always it was very easy to go into knowing that I had DMD and not feeling too upset or distraught about it, because it was always kind of a celebration that that's actually, I'm just thinking of that now. It's a great way to look at it. Like every year it's kind of celebrating you have DMD and we're working to fight it and you have all of this support. So I think, yeah, just being open and honest about it and just kind of celebrating that there's a whole bunch of people that would care for you, and yeah, just not be too upset or distraught about it, but just this is how it is and we will deal with it.
I'd like to add something to that. Is at least for all the healthcare professionals out there, there's also like a cultural aspect to remember too. So growing up in a Chinese family, that at least 2 generations, if not more, of our family members that live with Duchenne, there's a lot of growing up. There's a lot of like cultural silence around talking about it, because there's the shame around disability within family. So the film I showed of our 2 uncles, they couldn't go to school because there was no access to schooling in Hong Kong. And because of the shame our family felt, they had to remain at home. But then coming to Canada, then like living in a Canadian culture, it was like a transition for us. So even though when my brother was diagnosed, our family in Hong Kong didn't know about it because no one actually wanted to tell like our family. But then our mom had to like shift her mindset. So my mom, I remember the story our mom told me was when Muscular Dystrophy Canada hosted a kind of like a cross-cultural family gathering, we were the only family that showed up. So no other like Asian family with kids with Duchenne want to like come and meet other people. So I think as you're like working with clients who are from certain cultures that may still feel like the shame and the guilt of having a child with disability, I think that's something to keep in mind as well. But as you can see, Torrance and I, we love to talk about it. And like, at least for me, I know it's part of the healing process too, to be able to talk about it, especially given our family has multi-generations of different, be it muscular dystrophy and also mental health challenges too. And so we're trying to kind of break the barrier around that. So that's something just to keep in mind.
Any other questions, thoughts? No, yep.
Terrence, I think you mentioned in your video clip that you were trying to provide a support circle for your brother. I've been in a support circle for many years for an adult with autism, and you said you had varied success with that. Can you share a bit about your experience trying to do a support circle and the challenges with that?
Sure. So there was two different models that I looked at. So one is more like a formal, kind of like a formalized organization. Maybe you may have heard like micro boards. So it's like a very formalized board. So that was one model I was exploring. And then the other model that I was exploring that was created by the Plan Institute at BC is just called I think they call it the Personal Support Network. So very informal, using a similar model like a microboard. And there's like, actually Siblings Canada offered a training for all the siblings to kind of like become facilitators in it. And essentially it's like going through the process of like, identifying what the dream and goals of the person is, and then who are the trusted people in the person's life. And then from there, creating kind of like a more formal process of having like regular meetings with all these people to ensure that the person who needs the care is supported. So that was a model that I've been using with Torrance, and actually our mom, when she got her cancer diagnosis, of bringing all these people together, because then different people offered different ways that they could help. So at one point, our mom needed to go to a lot of appointments. And so one person on her support network said, hey, I could take your mom to appointments. I was like, oh, that's great. And then similar with Torrance, where we have different people kind of in his life now that he could turn to, so he doesn't have to rely on me solely. Yeah. So that's the two models that I explored before. And it's still a work in progress because you still need someone to run this informal network and ensure everyone's still engaged. And so it does still take energy and effort to make it happen. But yeah, so yeah.
We have a question online for Eric. So this is from a mom. Her son is 2.5 years old. So she's just asking, do you have any tips you could give her to kind of mentally prepare for the changes that are coming for her son? If there's anything that your parents did that kind of got you ready, or if, just being honest about it, anything you would like to say about that?
One thing I can remember about my elementary school days is that my parents had a really good network of friends who were parents of kids in my class or in my school in general, because obviously those are the kids that I would see every day, the peers that I would interact with. And so having the parents of the other kids in the school know about my diagnosis was really helpful for me, because I knew I could rely on other members of my community to help me out. So definitely reaching out to others in the community, even if they're not in the Duchenne community, like just make everyone aware that, oh, my son has DMD, and that we can all work together to make life easier for that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's about all I can really think about.
How about tips and tricks about you? How did you kind of go through, the diagnosis yourself? And if you have any tips?
Yep. Well, again, as I said before, there's the Eric's Dance-a-thon, something that I talked about. Tips for me, sorry, it's just tough because growing up, having known I had DMD since I was pretty much born, that's how I felt growing up. So I guess still do everything you can that what my parents did. Like, I got involved in soccer when I was a kid, and even though I was slower than the other kids, I felt part of the team and didn't feel like I was treated any differently. So just kind of a gentle introduction to Duchenne is good. I remember when I started taking deflazacort, I know taking a steroid as a 5-year-old is a little weird, like having to take a pill every day. It's kind of odd. So how it started is that my mom would like put the pill in a piece of jam and feed that to me, and I would eat it like that. And just kind of getting used to the routine of, yes, you have something, your muscles may be weak, and you might find yourself slower compared to your classmates, but it's okay to take a break every once in a while if you need to sit down. And yeah, just making them aware that it's mostly at the start, just that your muscles are weak and it's good to take breaks every once in a while. And so, yeah, just keep him like comfortable, make sure he knows that he's not any worse than anybody else just because he's a little bit slower, and make sure that, yeah, he has a good support network of people that understand what DMD is and that sometimes he just needs an extra hand.
Just have one other question for perhaps for both of you. In your experience, how do you think the healthcare system or healthcare providers could potentially do a better job? Like when you reflect back over the years, either in yourselves or other family members, how could it do a better job to care and support?
Definitely for when it comes to especially family doctors, making sure that they know what DMD is, because a lot of times when it came to especially when I turned 18 and became an adult to have to find new doctors, a lot of it was explaining what DMD is. It's because sometimes I mean, I am kind of lucky that most of the doctors that I got after I was 18 knew about DMD and have knowledge of it, but definitely that, because I remember when it came to the endocrinology stuff, there was a little bit of a push to go to the growth hormone, even though sometimes for DMD that's not the best in that case, because that's when I went over to the testosterone. So I guess really just understanding the up-to-date research that's being done on DMD and the standard of care, so that the best care can be provided.
I would have to say the transition piece. So when my brother transitioned as a child to adult, in terms of getting the kind of similar level of care in the pediatric side is not the same in the adult side. And I remember speaking, I can't remember who I spoke with, but they said, oh, because we haven't seen too many adults, so they're just not ready for it. But that's still not an excuse. But I would say that's certainly an opportunity there, because once my brother transitioned out of pediatrics, his pediatric doctor at Bloorview who's a specialist in muscular dystrophy, was really kind. He kept my brother and a lot of other young adults on until he retired. But then pretty much after he retired, my brother had to go to West Park, and West Park only really had like respiratory support. So there wasn't anybody that we could turn to for kind of like muscular dystrophy specific kind of guidance. So then we as a family are kind of left on our own to try to navigate whatever needs that comes up. We would have to figure it out. So I'd say that piece. And then the other piece would be kind of like the more home and community care kind of things, where also as a child, he got kind of support, and then becoming an adult, we had to kind of figure it out again with the OHT to figure out, okay, what are all the care services that are available in our region, so that as Torrance's condition progressed, can all the services be there to support him to live a quality life? So I'd say those would be two areas that I could see our healthcare system improving to better support the person living with DMD and then the family that's actually providing the care.
All right. Thank you so much.
Hey, I do have a question for Eric.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Because you mentioned you have a younger brother. Yes. So what's your relationship like with your brother, and how involved is he in your life now?
So he actually just graduated from University of Guelph, and so he's now got a full-time job out in Kitchener, Waterloo, and he also lives out there as well. And so Um, it's really good. We see each other when we can, of course, because I live out here in Ottawa, he lives out there, and our parents are in Oakville, so it's quite a bit of organizing when we want to see each other. But yeah, he is. We're pretty close. He's planning on coming out for the Panda game this year, and the two of us are gonna hit that up, which should be fun. And yeah, especially growing up, we were very, very close, and he is always definitely there to help. I remember this one incident when we were on a holiday in California. We were like doing the coast, and we tried to get to see the Hollywood sign, and he did an awesome job helping my mom get me up, because as my dad was parking in the Hollywood Hills trying to find somewhere to park, the three of us were making our way up the hill to find a good view of the Hollywood sign. And yeah, the amount of help that he managed to do, and not even asking for thanks from it, like he just does it. If I need help, he knows to hop right on it. And yeah, our relationship's good, and excited to see what happens once I'm out in the world and how that's gonna change it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Any other questions, thoughts? If not, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much.